As we have seen our 6 basic characteristics of constitution, basic features of constitution, which were first was written document, second was size of constitution, third was single citizenship, fourth was the center with strong federal structure, fifth unified arrangement during crisis, sixth, now our sixth characteristics, basic feature of constitution is parliamentary system. In parliamentary system, as our India is running through parliamentary system of government, means here the parliament is having two chambers, as we know that every house has its upper house and lower house. Same, the parliamentary is divided into two sections, which are upper house and lower house. As we know that upper house, which is known as Rajya Sabha, and lower house, which is known as Lok Sabha. So the government is carried on the name of president, prime minister, chief minister in all the states, as we are seeing. So in this we will learn that how many members are there in this Rajya Sabha, how many years of tenure has been there in Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha. So moving towards our sixth characteristics, which is parliamentary system. India has a parliamentary system of government. In a parliamentary system, the parliament is the supreme authority representing the people. So parliament is one of the supreme authority which is representing the people. As you can see on the screen, we are choosing our prime minister, president by doing the vote. So our India has a parliamentary system of governments. You can see, children, on the screen, the parliament is divided into two parts, which is Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha, which is upper house, and Lok Sabha, which is lower house. So the legislature at the union is the parliament. Legislature means legislative body. So you can see we have our two house, upper house, which is known as Rajya Sabha, and lower house, which is known as Lok Sabha. The parliament is bicameral, means it has two houses. Bicameral means having two chambers. It has two houses, as we are seeing on the screen. The upper house and lower house. Upper house is called Rajya Sabha and lower house is called Lok Sabha. Through the government is carried on in the name of president at the union and governor in the state. So this union is known as president and government is carried on the name of president as union, and according to the state it is a governor. Union, and according to the state it is governor. Actual administration is carried by the Council of Minister, which is headed by the Prime Minister at the Union and Chief Minister in the state. We will see that the Council of Minister, you can see by the Union, you can see by the President, it is by the Union it is Prime Minister, and according to the states it is Chief Minister. So Parliament, the government which is carried on the name of President at the Union, at the state it is known as Governor. At the Union, after the President it comes Prime Minister, after the Governor of state it's come Chief Minister. So it is regulated and carried by the Council of Minister, which is headed by Prime Minister at the Union part and at the Chief Minister at the state part. The Council of Minister is responsible to the legislature that comprises representative of people. So this Council of Minister is a collection that comprises the representative of people. Underline, children. The President selects 12 people who are experts and experienced from various fields for Rajya Sabha. Now for selecting for the Rajya Sabha, people of Rajya Sabha, the President, what he is doing, he is selecting 12 people who are experts and experienced in this field. So from various fields for Rajya Sabha, the President is choosing how many people? 12 people who are very well experienced and experts in the field of parliamentary. Rajya Sabha is permanent house in which 1/3 member retire every 2 years and the same number of members for the election. Now in Rajya Sabha what it is happening, it is a permanent house in which what happens, 2/3 members are retiring every 2 years. In every 2 years, how many members are retiring? 2/3 members, and the same proportion of members are coming for the elections. You can see 1/3 of members are returning and the proportion of them are coming for the elections. So Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. Each member has 6 years of tenure in Rajya Sabha. 6 years of tenure means 6 years of period in Rajya Sabha. Thus, each member has 6 years of tenure in Rajya Sabha, Council of States. So people elected for Rajya Sabha has 6 years of tenure. The power of Rajya Sabha are less compared to the Lok Sabha, which is spatial, superior and decisive. Rajya Sabha cannot be completed dissolved. So Rajya Sabha cannot be completely dissolved. So this was our 6th feature of Constitution. Now moving towards our 7th feature of Constitution, which is independent and impartial judiciary. So moving towards our independent and impartial judiciary means, as we have seen the sovereign word, in sovereign what we have seen that it is India is externally independent, it is self-dependent, it is not dependent on any other region or a particular king. So 7th, independent and impartial judiciary. The Constitution has provided for the establishment of an independent and impartial judiciary. There is a Supreme Court at the top, then there are high courts at the states and under its jurisdiction. Yes, children, as we have seen, it is independent and impartial. In Constitution, what we see? That the Supreme Court, you can see on the screen, the Supreme Court is at the top. Under the Supreme Court, it is High Court. And under the High Court, you can see there are district courts, local and special courts. So first at the top is Supreme Courts. After that, High Court is there. And after that, all the district courts and local and special courts are there. At the district and taluka level, there are local and special courts. The judgment of Supreme Court are binding to all the subordinate courts at the nations. So the Supreme Courts gives all the orders and laws to this district courts, local and special courts. They are under the Supreme Court. In the case of conflict between the union and state government, if there arises any conflict between union and state government, then what happens? Then matters relating to the constitution and interpretation of statutes, and if arises any conflicts between them both, the final decision is vested with the Supreme Court, and the final decision what the Supreme Court gives is to be taken. So the Supreme Court is the protector and the guardian of the Constitution. So the Supreme Court is to be considered as the protector and guardian of the Constitution. So what we have seen in independent and impartial justice, that the decision of the Supreme Court is to be taken because Supreme Court is the most at the top court which decide all its decisions. So moving towards our 8th feature. 8th feature is amendments in Constitution. What are the amendments in the Constitution? As the word amendment means changes. As in India we can see that our Constitution depends on the amendment, means there are many dynamic changes in our Constitution. So we will see that amendment in Constitution means what were the changes in the constitutions. So moving towards our 8th characteristics, which is amendment in Constitution. What were the amendments in the Constitution? Compared to other countries' Constitution of India is dynamic, means comparing to the other countries like British, Irish, America, France, Constitution of India is dynamic, means characterized by constant changes. Constitution can be amendment as and when required. If it is required at any time, the amendment of this Constitution has been happening. Many changes are carried out on this amendments. Constitution provisions can be amended in 3 ways. In how many ways it is amendment? In 3 ways. We will see which 3 ways are there. Our first amendment is, amendments can be made by a simple majority of members present and voting in the parliament. So how this amendment can be carried out? Our first amendment is, it is being carried out by simple majority of the members, the people which are present in the parliament, and from them the voting is to be carried out and the amendment is to be made. So our first is amendment is made by the majority members and present and voting in the parliament. Second, you can see. Second, certain amendments required a special majority, that is 2/3 majority of members present and voting. Now there are certain amendments which require special majority. In that, if we are doing any certain things, in that we need a special majority, that is 2/3 majority of members should be present and should be voting. Means sometimes what happens that there is voting, but in 2/3 majority of compulsory members should be present and voting. And our third is, you can see Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha, lower house, upper house. Third, concerning the union-state relation, the special majority is 2/3. Now concerning this union and state, means upper house and lower house, there should be 2/3 of the majority present, majority voting. And the concurrence not less than 50% of the state legislature is required. If there is any amendment to be made in interrelations between union state structure or its supreme judiciary, then the half of states from total states have to give consent. Judgment of court can also bring amendment by the parliament. Yes, the judgment of court on any topics can also bring a change in the parliament. The decisions can be changed according to the judgment of court. There will be no change in the basic structure of the constitution. Simple majority in parliament can bring change in the amendments of the constitution. So, constitution is the most inconstant and flexible document, but at certain cases it is not a simple majority. Without the majority consent of states, it is not amendable. Then, 2, the mixture that makes the constitution. So this was our eighth feature of constitution, which was amendment to the amendment in constitution, that many changes are to be brought. So our 9th basic feature is universal aided suffrage. In universal aided suffrage means right to vote. The citizen who is having 18 years of age and above can 18 years of age or about can cast the vote. He or she has right to vote, means universal aided suffrage means right to vote, that in India about 18 years of age has right to vote in any of the legislative assembly, election of any of the legislative assembly, local government organization and parliament. So moving towards our 9th basic feature, which is universal aided suffrage. In India, we have a system of aided suffrage which is quite flexible, as we have seen. According to that, if any citizen who is 18 years of age and above possesses right to vote in the election of parliament. Yes, in India, if a person is having 18 years of age or above, he or she can cast his vote in the election of parliament, in the election of legislative assembly, in the election of local self-government bodies, without any discrimination of caste, creed, education, property and economic standard. So it was a basic characteristics, that was universal aided suffrage, means right to vote. The person who is having above years of 18 has, without any discrimination of education, economic standard, has right to vote. So now moving towards our next characteristics, which is secularism. Secularism, as we have seen, that India is a secular state. Secularism means without interference of any matters of religion. It is not based on any specific religion, but it follows all the religions freely, as we have seen. Every people has the same right and same right to follow its religion. The people of India has their own choice to follow the religion, as we have seen in our pillar of religion. As we have seen, our pillar of religion was secularism. Same point has been given in it. Secularism In the constitution, India has been declared as a secular state. People of different religions reside in the country. So in India, we have seen the same point in the secularism, which was our basic pillar of the constitution. Same point has been mentioned, that in India, the people are really living of different religions. They are worshipping different festivals. So people of different religions reside in India. Therefore, the state cannot be discriminate any citizen on the basis of religion. We cannot discriminate on the basis of religion. No citizen can be given special rights or cannot be deprived with certain rights. As it is a secular country, the state has to be absolutely impartial and neutral in the respect of religion, that without any discrimination of caste, education and political standard, all should be given proper equality. Only secular state can offer proper or equal treatment towards all the citizens. Secularism means, underline, that the state does not interfere in the matters of religion or is biased to any specific religion. Means it is not a part of a particular religion, that this type of only religion should be there in our country, but it is a part of a different religion. So India, our country, is a part. Followers of every religion are free to follow and practice the religion of their own choice. Every people living in our country has their own choice to follow. So after secularism, our next topic is judicial review. In judicial review, we will see that that the union and state within the jurisdiction are administrating their working, they are following their orders, they are following their judgments, which are given in judicial review. So moving towards our next characteristics, which is judicial review. Judicial review administers the working of union and state within the jurisdiction. As you can see, the central government does their work, state government does their work. You can see the state governments divided into three categories: legislature, executive and judiciary. Without disrespecting the powers of parliament, the constitution has made an effort to harmonize the principle of judicial review. So the main aim of judicial review is to harmonize between all, that the work is to be done properly or not. The principles are to be achieved or not in the judicial review. Judicial review, parliament amendments, it includes external orders, ordinances, judicial judgments. Yes, so you can see judicial review includes all this. If the court finds any indiscrepancy in the external orders or ordinances or judicial judgments, then what happens? Then it cannot stop by declaring them unconstitutional. So this was our 11th characteristics of constitution. Now moving towards our 12th characteristic. So our 12th characteristic is fundamental rights and duties. What are our fundamental rights? As we have seen in our previous slide, we have seen that what were our fundamental rights and duties. So moving towards our fundamental rights and duties. Fundamental rights and duties are conformed to the people of India and Constitution. Fundamental rights are conformed to the people of India by the Constitution to live a dignified life. You can see on the screen there are fundamental rights. As we can see that right to equality means all should have equal rights, right to freedom, rights against exploitation, right to freedom of religion, cultural and educational rights, right to constitutional remedies. So these were one of the fundamental rights of our constitutions. The most valuable capital of our country is in the overall development of the nation, which further lies in the fundamental duties and rights. So our main aim of the country should be overall development of the nation. If there will be overall development of nation, then if we will follow this duties, our rights and duties, there will be overall development of our nation. So this were some of the fundamental rights. You can see, children, you can see fundamental duties. I am reading one by one. First duty is to abide by and respect the Constitution, the national flag and the national anthem. So our first duty, what is our first duty? We should respect our national flag and the national anthem. Second, To cherish and follow the noble ideas of our national freedom struggle. Third, to uphold and protect sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. Fourth, to defend the country and render national service when required. Fifth, to promote common brotherhood of all the people in India and renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of human. As this all the duties somewhat we can see in our preamble. Sixth, to value and preserve the rich heritage of nations' composite characteristics. Seventh, to protect and improve national environment and have compassion for living creatures. Eighth, to develop scientific temper, humanism and spirit of inquiry. Our ninth duty, to safeguard public property and abjure violence. And our 10th is to strive towards excellence in all the spheres of the individuals and collective activities. These were some of the duties which are not been in your textbook, but I have included. Right to constitutional remedies, and for the children 6 to 14 years of age, right to educate are also made available. So this age should be have the right to educate compulsory. The children should have their education. So this was our 12 characteristics. Now moving towards our 13 basic feature, which is directive principle of state policy. Yes, what did directive principle of state policy includes? It includes those principles which provide direction for the state governments and policy making for the state government. So we will see that which points are included in directive principles of state policy. Protection of people's security and welfare should be carried out by the states. So the state should carry out what? They should carry out the protection of people, the security of the people and welfare of the people. That what activities are been going on. Directive principles you can see, which are principle relating to economic policy, principle relating to social policy, principle related to international and political policies, principle related to education and cultural policies, and principle related to health policy. These were some of the principles which were included in the state policies. So after this, our last basic feature of constitution is provision for backward sections and tribes. Now what are the provisions which are included to uplift the backward sections, to make them, so which were the specific provisions in the constitution for this backward sections, which seats were reserved from there, what specific equality opportunities to be given, what specific provisions were there for them. So we will see in this characteristics. To uplift and include backward sections and tribes and deprived class in the mainstream, there are specific provisions in the constitution. So for this backward sections and tribes, there were specific provisions in the constitutions. Reserved seats are allocated in the legislature and local self-governing bodies election to provide the representation. So some seats were being reserved for this backward sections and tribes. Reservation quota has been provided for admission in educational institutions and government jobs in proportion to their population to provide equal opportunity. As you can see, there SC, ST, OBC, this type of classes are there, but this backward section and tribes has then ST class. For them there is some reservation quota in the educational institute and government job. Their first preference is to be taken in every part of the educational institution, in the part of government jobs. A proportion of reservation quota is to be provided for their admissions, by that seeing to their population. So children of backward sections, they are given scholarship, they are giving the basic amenities, means basic facilities, waived fees by lower fees, which come under optimistic policies and scheduling policy as a provisions in the constitution. So the backward sections of tribes children are getting many of these facilities like scholarship and all. So children, this was our topic, which was basic facility. Children, here we end to our chapter in which we have seen some topics of constitutions, preamble, importance of constitution, importance of preamble. After that we have studied pillars of preamble, which was main topic. In that we have seen our three main pillars of preamble, which were democracy, socialist and secularism. After that we have studied basic feature of constitution, which was also one of the most important topic of this chapter. In that we have studied total 14 features of constitution, which were very important from our preamble. So this was the end of the chapter. Thank you.